I'm getting tons of questions about how I'm going to turn $10,000 into $1 million portfolio using just Bitcoin. In this video, I'm going to explain some of the mathematics behind how I believe we're going to get to $1 million, tools I'm going to use, and how I expect the cycles to play out, and how I expect to compound my returns to turn my $10,000 into $1 million portfolio for retirement using just Bitcoin. Now, the first assumption is if you're here and you're into crypto, you will have a belief that Bitcoin will hit $1 million. Now, if you follow the power projection law, Bitcoin will hit $1 million by 2034. If you go to the maths of global asset classes and how you can allocate, how hedge fund managers and fund managers can allocate a small percentage of the trillions and dollars of wealth out there into crypto and into Bitcoin, the maths are very clear. It will hit $1 million. But the burning question I get is, even from 100K, that's only a 10x. Now, for 10x 10,000, it's only 100,000, right? I think today we're at $70,000. So that's kind of going to be a 12.5x. So how am I going to turn $10,000 into $1 million Bitcoin portfolio? 3 years ago, in January 2023, I speculatively bought $1,500 worth of Bitcoin. I've always kind of been into crypto and the idea of what Bitcoin is and does, the fundamentals behind it, why it exists. And I'm not going to go into that today, but I've always kind of been into that. So I speculatively bought $1,500 worth of Bitcoin. If you don't know about my story, I lost my business last year, and in that business was any hope of a decent retirement, any assets or nest eggs that I held ultimately went with the business. The business went belly up, it got liquidated in 2025, and I lost everything. All that I have left over is my $10,000, which I am all in on Bitcoin, right? So over the last 3 years, I've taken that $1,500 and I've turned it into $10,982. It's more like near enough to $11,000, but give or take, it's easier just to say $10,000. I turned that into $10,000. Now, I was able to do that because I followed a very clear set of rules. Early on, I decided to turn off the Twitter, turn off crypto Twitter, turn off crypto YouTube, ignore the noise and the narrative, and just follow data. I started subscribing to reports from Swissblock, Glassnode, follow a few Substacks that provide decent technical analysis and data on what the market's doing. I found very quickly that narrative and crypto Twitter, crypto YouTube all follows price, right? They're lagging, it's lagging noise. It's lagging because it's behind, right? The price happens and people talk about it. And narrative is just noise. It's just opinion and feedback on what's happening with the price. But what I found through data was data tells you what the market is doing today, right? Price tells you what's already happened. Data tells you what is happening. The most beautiful thing about Bitcoin is it's on the blockchain, and the blockchain's able to give you a lot of feedback and information on what's happening. Money flows, risk, sentiment, what's happening with network growth. There's tons of data out there that tells me exactly what's happening with the market. So early on, I was able to aggregate a lot of this data, a lot of this metrics into a very simple traffic light system, which tells me really when I should be holding Bitcoin and when I should be rotated back out to stables. So over the last 3 years, I've used this system. I call it a system. I call it an investing system, not a trading system. I hate the word trading because even though technically I'm trading, over the last 3 years, I've made 8 buys and 8 sells. You could call that trading. I don't think it's as frequent enough to call it swing trading. Swing trading follows a month for month. Maybe it is, but I like to refer to it as investing because I'm taking a very considered approach to how I enter and exit the market. So over the last 3 years, I've followed the data and I've entered the market 8 times and exited the market 8 times. That has given me a 632.15% return on my initial investment. I've turned my $1,500 to $10,982. So that's my starting point. 632% is my starting point in what is kind of believed to be a bit of an underwhelming bull run. Now, if you look at the context of crypto bros, they all believe the bull run was awful and that it wasn't a good bull run. We didn't make the highs everyone expected. I'm going to go back to my initial point and say that a lot of that expectation was driven by noise, and it was also driven by previous bull runs where certain coins, certainly altcoins, which I don't discuss on this channel because they are speculative at best, certain coins doing 50x, 100x, things like that. I think the expectation that Bitcoin would suddenly do a super cycle and things, that was noise, that was opinion, that was just narrative, right? I don't buy the narrative, I look at data. At not one point did the data ever tell me we were gonna have a super cycle. At not one point did the data ever tell me we're gonna go above $126,000. Now, the reality is, I don't do price predictions, I do not follow price. So, bearing in mind, my base case is 635%. Let's be conservative. Let's call it 600% returns over one bull run. I've got 3 more cycles because the 4-year cycles is still intact. Contrary to what people think, the 4-year cycles are still very much intact right now. I've got 3 more cycles before I get to an age where I want to retire, right? So we're at 2026 now. I expect 2026 to be the bottom of the next cycle up to 2030, 2030 to 2034, then 2034 to 2038, right? Those are the dates I'm working with. Those are the cycles I'm working with. That's how I'm playing the next 3 cycles, right? So my base case is 600% returns per cycle. I have 3 more cycles. Now there's 2 more things that I'm going to factor into the $1 million Bitcoin exit playbook, which is compounding profits and Bitcoin's natural price appreciation. I believe, it's my belief, and the maths support, that I will hit $1 million between 2034 and 2038. That's my belief and my maths of how I think I'll hit my $1 million per Bitcoin somewhere in the 3rd cycle between 2034 and 2038. If my maths are correct, then I should hit the finish of the cycle, 2038, when I'm 58 years old. I'll hit $3.8 million worth of Bitcoin in my portfolio, which will be fantastic. Let's take my previous cycle as my base case, right? $1,500 to make $10,982. On my Substack, link in the bio, you'll see every trade I've made. YouTube is where I talk about my philosophy as Bitcoin is a serious retirement asset. It is the $1 million exit. It's kind of what I'm all about. It's where you're gonna get my thinking, my philosophy, my thesis around how I invest, how I trade. On my Substack is the execution. It's every trade, every decision I make, every mistake or every win, transparently recorded, immutably on my Substack post. All the thinking, all the data, all the metrics I use is reserved for paying subscribers. If you're interested and want to find out more, head there. Pay my Substack and you can trade along with me, or a portion of your portfolio, or all of your portfolio like me. I've done a video as to why I'm all in, about my retirement runway, and about how I lost any kind of asset I had, so you can go and watch that. But ultimately today is about the maths. Now it's my belief, because of previous bull runs, although past performance isn't a suggestion of future performance, we've bottomed around the 200-week SMA, the realized price and the balance price. There's 3 levels. I don't know what they are price-wise because they will change because they're based on averages. But my belief is that we will bottom around one of these 3 prices. So if you are going to DCA, I'm not a fan of blind DCA. Imagine DCAing at the top of a bull market and DCAing all the way to the bottom. That's an awful thing to do. I will DCA around those 3 prices or those 3 lines. That's what I will do. I'll take my $10,982, roughly speaking, unless the market tells me otherwise. I will expect to buy in at those 3 levels, one of those 3 levels. I'll DCA at those 3 prices. And then I will ride the next bull market up over the next 4 years. What I will do in that time frame is read the data and use my traffic light system to tell me when to be in and out the market. Now, what my traffic light system does incredibly well, I tell you what my traffic light system does quite well, is able to identify market conditions that allow for price appreciation. So it tells me when there's stability in the market, there's very low structural risk, there's good momentum, and it's suggesting that I hold Bitcoin. It's quite good at doing that. What my traffic light system is really good at is avoiding major drawdowns. My traffic light system is quite good at identifying price appreciation, but it's really good at identifying drawdowns, which means I'm able to survive major pullbacks, major drawdowns. It means I can preserve my capital, which is ultimately the point of my system. It's about surviving bear markets and drawdowns. You know, Bitcoin moves in waves, right? The reality is most of the upside is in very small periods of time, like 30%, but 70% is downside. My system is very good at avoiding those drawdowns. So fast forward to 2030, my $10,982 with a 600% return is now worth $77,000. I've 6 to 7x my return. Assuming Bitcoin cycles stay the same 4 years, we will start to enter a 12-month bear market. Assuming we hit the balance price, 200-week SMA and realized price, assuming it's around the fourth quarter, September, October, November, December, I will take my $77,000 buyback in at the bear market bottom. So we now find ourselves at the end of the second cycle, 2034. By Bitcoin's power projection law, we're at $1 million per Bitcoin or thereabouts, and my portfolio value is now $539,000. I'm now at $500,000. What can we expect at this point? I imagine TradFi is well and truly under the table. Banks are now holding Bitcoin through a number of ETFs because that's how banks and institutions and global wealth funds will hold their Bitcoin. They ain't messing around with hard wallets and keys and things like that. They are all buying their Bitcoin through ETFs, through BlackRock, through Fidelity, probably through Coinbase institutional ETFs. We now get to the bottom of our bear market by, 2035. I've got my $500,000, my $500,000 sat in Bitcoin. I am waiting for the next bull run. By this point, I believe I'm maybe 56, 55 years old. I'm now sitting on $500,000 worth of Bitcoin, and I'm waiting for the next market signal to enter the market and exit the market and make my 600% compounded returns. By the end of that bull run, that is $3.8 million. Somewhere between 2034 and 2038, between my age of 54 and 58, I will hit my $1 million of Bitcoin. I will also ride the bull run. Market conditions pending, I'll ride the bull run all the way to the end and try and compound to $3.8 million or thereabouts. At that point, I can park my Bitcoin in a nice low risk yield, take my 4 to 8% yield, or I might diversify that into a number of different pots and then live out my retirement in peace. Whilst I'm trading my portfolio over the next 10, 15 years, in that time, I expect to stay on YouTube. I expect to keep my Substack updated. I expect to guide and help people through the next 3 cycles. There are no get-rich-quick schemes. I will not talk about altcoins. I won't even talk about Ethereum. Altcoins are speculation at best to the most liquid and best performing asset out there, which is Bitcoin, which I was always talk about. I will never dilute my bags. I will never take altcoins. I won't even put a 10% DGEM portfolio. I'm not about that. Too many people have been burnt doing that sort of stuff, gambling, hoping it will pay off. That is not me. My stakes are far too important, far too real to be messing about with speculative plays such as altcoins and meme coins and crap like that. If you believe my maths are absolutely ridiculous, then please tell me. But if you're with me and you believe in the Bitcoin cycles and you think the math kind of works out, then please give me a thumbs up, give me a like, and subscribe for the journey. Either to watch me fall flat on my face, because I've had some very negative comments, which I'm fine about, that's fine. But if you're here and the algos find you, you'll have a belief in crypto, you'll have a belief in Bitcoin. And if you're level-headed like me, and you want to take a low-risk approach to investing in crypto, more specifically Bitcoin, you'll be here for the journey. You'll be wanting to do what I do. So please follow along for the journey, hit like, hit subscribe, watch me fall flat on my face, or watch me sail into the sunset on a big, fat, digital asset yacht. Thanks for getting this far, guys.